and everything is dark down there, and I look around and everything is dark, and I go back into my room and I turn on the light and I look and I have a mantle. Okay, in the corner of my living room I've got a big cabinet, and inside that cabinet is my television. On top of that cabinet is an old mantle clock that my grandparents received as a wedding gift in 1938, an electric mantle clock. It chimes the Westminster chime and everything. Be more about that in a minute. And I look at it, and it's about 4:15, 20 after 4. Don't laugh, 4:20, I know. In the morning. These guys don't show up till about 7:30.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. Close the door, turn on the TV, turn up the volume, and be like, okay, I'm up. So, yeah, so I later added that whole account.
Explain that, George.
Right?
Most recently, so I was awake. I woke to the sound of someone running up the stairs, and I was awake a minute to 2 minutes later because I was already sitting up, rubbing my eyes, when I heard bum 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 running down and giggling. So I was completely awake when that happened. I can assure you to the best. What's that?
It's the girl in black.
Well, the woman in black or the
woman
girl
in black.
white?
Sorry.
No,
sorry,
you know what's funny though? It sounded a lot younger than Emma Tiedemann. She died when she was 15. Now there have been 4 deaths in the house. That includes Louise Tiedemann, which is 57. There were also 2 caretakers of the house when it was owned by the Eintracht Club. One in the 1940s, Jacob Enns, and then Mr. Fichter, who happened to die around 1965 or 66. Those were 2 caretakers, but there was also a 13-year-old boy, Albert Mulhauser, who died in the house. But even at that, this laugh sounded too high to be a 13. Okay, maybe a 13-year-old kid, but it sounded like a little kid giggling running down the stairs, like a playful, giggly laughter of a child. This didn't sound like a 15-year-old girl.
And you had never experienced anything like that before?
Not at that point, no. That's the first time that I had heard something like that. I heard whistling in the house. Okay. I've heard talking coming, like I thought that I had paused a movie on Netflix, and I thought that when I went outside, I used to be a smoker, so I went outside and had a cigarette, and when I came back in and I was walking towards my room, I thought the movie had, first night that I had the TV, I thought that the movie had unpaused. Apparently they don't unpause, and I didn't know that. I'd never had Netflix before. And I heard talking coming in there, and I'm like, oh, damn it. And I walk in, and no, the movie's still paused. And as soon as I opened the door, it got very quiet. Like, all of a sudden, the talking stopped. It was right there. Like, I walked in on a conversation, and as soon as I opened the door, it stopped.
So if they're spirits, they're aware of our presence. That's interesting.
Perhaps. And on a note on that, a lot of people have asked me, has anything bad ever happened to you here? No, nothing bad has ever happened to me in the castle. Not bad like that. Mm-hmm. Shortly after I moved in, I was walking up the stairs with my brother, and I felt like I got stung in the leg by a bee. Now I don't have anaphylaxis from bee stings, but I get pretty damn sick. I'm mildly allergic. And I thought, there's an apiary in the yard next to us in the garden. I thought I got stung by a bee, so we went up into my room. My brother and I took my pants off, shook them out, and I'm looking for a bee. We're looking, and we saw a welt, and the welt went away within a minute. But within the matter of a few weeks, John and I were over there, and we were finishing up the manuscript of the book, and I read through the entire manuscript out loud with him while we were working on this. So if it is, as you might suggest, a conscious haunting that's aware of us, they are aware of who I am, what I'm doing there, my take, and the fact that I'm telling the story true, and I'm telling their story truly, then maybe they're giving me a reprieve. Are you ever
scared you're going to wake up and they're going to be like critiquing your work?
Oh, yeah, well,
incorrect.
If they would at this point, they probably would have let me know by something. They probably would have erased paragraphs from the book. So now people are like,
come back to your notes are crossed out.
Yeah, that would be really interesting if that happened. So we've had a lot of people ask, well, aren't you afraid to live there? I said, no, I'm fine living there. I'm like, look, until I get shoved down the stairs or get knives thrown at me or wake up with a bunch of scratches or wake up with some ghoulish phantom hovering over my head going, then I'm moving the hell out. I'm done. I'll move out.
So there's never been that feeling of a violent spirit.
No, but I have had a few things happen early on. We did have one night where a couple things did get thrown around in the basement. I don't think that was really meant to scare me, although it did unsettle me a little bit. It was a 6-foot step ladder and a 4x8 sheet of plywood. Did get tossed about an hour apart from each other. I don't know which got thrown first. I only found out about it after the fact, but it did make me jump out of my skin a little bit when it happened because I was up in the office plugging away at the computer. Most recent thing that did happen though, and gosh, this is an ongoing thing, and this is where the clock thing comes in. Excuse me.
Wait, the bee thing.
the bee thing,
What
yeah.
correlated with the, like? What do you think that was?
I was making a joke, unfortunately, at the expense of the house. A friend of mine had just gotten locked out of the house. I had a few friends over, and he's like, "Oh, I thought it was locked." He's like, "I was he's like, I thought the door's unlocked. The door's locked now." And I'm like, and I'm on the phone. He's calling me to let him in. I'm like, "Dude, haunted house, hello." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot, whatever." And I'm like, "Ah." And so walking up the stairs with my brother after I let them in, that's when I got to the leg. So it happened in conjunction with that.
The little boy didn't die from like bee stings.
Yeah,
did he?
no,
Oh, that would be nuts.
I don't remember what he died from, but it wasn't bee stings.
Oh gosh, what's if it's bee stings?
Would have been horrible if it was bee stings. I want to say it was shoot. I have it. It's in the book. We can scroll to it. It's in chapter like 10 or 11 or something. It's long after all. The picture of Louise. That's supposedly, by the way, that was the woman in black. That's who they believe to be the woman in black is Louise Tiedemann. Now there's a later photo of her. She was not a depressed woman, though, as they insinuate. She was not. Now, recently, a friend of mine, Zach, came over to the house, and he'd never been over. And I have a number of the family photos hanging in parts of my part of the apartment. And while I was sitting there making drinks for him and my friend Sean, who come over, and he starts on one photo of all people, Emma Tiedemann. He's like, "Man, these are some creepy pictures, man." And I'm like, "Yeah." In fact, why don't you scroll ahead to that photo? I'll show you guys.
Yeah, don't say that out loud.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a little bit. Yeah, you're getting. Yeah, it's in.
Oh,
No, it's okay. Keep going. That's Emma, but yeah, that's.
is that the girl?
No,
in white
that's
then,
yeah,
Emma?
that's yeah, that would be her. And there's
Oh, that's
Louise.
scary.
That's Louise. That's Dora. So keep going a little bit farther, and yeah, it's in this chapter here.
How do
And
people find
it
this
is
book that might want to
The
follow?
next photo. Oh, you can. How do they find this photo?
Yeah, this book.
Oh, keep going a little bit more.
How do people order your book?
I think we went past the photo.
Oh, do we?
No, keep going. Keep going. It's the next photo. Well, you can find it at Giant Eagle. That's the one. But you can also find it in dumpsters, secondhand stores, garage sales.
Is it-
People
you said
just
was on
giving
Amazon,
it away.
though?
Yeah, you can get it on
Yes.
Amazon too,
Actually,
and most any bookstore in the area.
Yeah,
too.
and if you have a Kindle or even just a
Oh, yeah.
smartphone, you can get it right on your smartphone through the Kindle app.
And we keep talking about it. What's the name of the book?
Haunted Franklin Castle.
Okay.
Wasn't my first choice, but that's what I want. I wanted Ghosts and Legends of the Franklin Castle, or
I like that better.
Cleveland's Franklin Castle, or Franklin Castle Building a Cleveland Legend was the original title I was going for. So I have this photo hanging in my living room, and Zach made a really rude comment about it. Oh, who the blank is this blank? Oh, she's blank and blank. She's a effing, she's effing creepy, man. And I'm sitting there, and while I'm doing that, I'm like, that's my friend's great aunt. I'm like, that's also who supposedly haunts the castle. And I'm sitting there, and I just made blender drinks. I was telling you guys about the blender drinks earlier. So I got a blender, and I'm pour Sean's, and I set his glass down. As I'm pouring Zach's, I'm like, yeah, dude, can you? Oh, well, you should toss that picture out, man. She's effing hideous. And as I'm pouring it, I hear, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And I look, and there's this perfect line going around about that far up in the bottom of the glass. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Bam! The whole bottom of the glass goes out, and I have frozen raspberry vodka lemonade all over the floor. And I'm like, I'm not gonna, yeah, F-bomb. And I'm like, damn it. I throw the glass over into the sink, and the guy's like, oh shit. And they come running in. I'm like, yeah. And as we're sitting there, I look at Zach. I'm like, don't you say another word,
Yeah,
man.
don't
And
insult the ghost
You
that
got-
haunts his
yeah.
house.
So
you dummy.
I got pissed. So I was so yeah, he ended up standing there. I'm like, you just don't. He's like, well, and he's like, well, I don't believe any of that stuff. I think it's just your glass is old. And I'm like, glass isn't that old. I'm gonna say, why did yours break and not, Sean's as I'm finishing yours?
I
And
got
so it
plenty
was-
of old glasses.
Yeah, and then they're not old
Fascinating.
glasses, but that happened
Responsive,
while.
reactionary.
Yeah, while that was going on, the bottom of the glass. It was like out of Poltergeist, where the bottom of the glass, not my fault, in the movie. And I'm like that's the first time that had ever happened at the house. It happened just as he was saying that garbage about that photo of Emma Tiedemann.
Kind of reminds me of Ghostbusters when they're the second one when they're in court.
Oh,
and
yeah,
getting
yeah,
all
he's
angry
talking
and
about
the
the
Scoleri brothers.
they
I
come-
gave
they
them the
come
chip.
jumping
It's
right
like,
out
he's
of
going
the
on and on.
thing.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what you told to them. They don't believe. I thought you meant like where do these stairs go? They go up. I love that line. So one of the most that happened more recent than what I'm about to tell you. I moved back into the house on my brother's birthday, October 18th. I got home from Put-in-Bay for the season, and I was back at the castle. 5th year, it's sweet, and I dozed off as I oftentimes do on the couch, watching TV, and eventually I just turn off the TV. Now most times I go and crawl into bed. I need something on in order to, because I
feel the same.
problems falling asleep. So I'm lying there and I turn off the TV and I'm lying in bed. Now I got this thing. It's like, So sometimes my brain wakes up at about 4:00 in the morning. Then my bowels wake up at about 7 in the morning, and then the rest of me doesn't wake up till about 10 o'clock. So we take care of it in that order. So at about 4 or 5 in the morning, I'm sitting there and I'm on the couch and I just kind of roll over, and I'm looking and the TV's off, and I'm looking at the mantle clock that's above the TV cabinet, and there's a light shining on it. Now I'm pretty sure lights don't normally. Now you do get lights on the wall around it when there's a car coming up 44th from Randall to 44th. Yep. So you do get a light on the wall. I'm thinking that's what it is because it's like a bluish gray sort of like a light shining on the glass of the face of the clock. And I'm just kind of looking at it, and I don't know what the hell I'm looking at, and I'm like, that's kind of forming something. I start doing this whole thing. I'm rubbing my eyes, and then I sit up and I'm rubbing my eyes, and I'm sitting there and I'm kind of looking at it. And as I'm watching it, I'm kind of like looking outside, like, where the hell's that light? Because it's really bright on there, and I'm like, where the hell is this coming from? And I'm kind of doing this, the side window. I'm like looking on the kitchen light. I don't see anything shining in that way. What the hell am I looking at? And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, and as I'm staring, it's coming more and more into focus. It's a man's face with big sideburns and a lot of hair, and he doesn't look real happy, and I have no idea who the hell this is because it doesn't look like anybody that's photographed in the... Okay, maybe Hannes Tiedemann when he had the beard, but this man didn't seem to look like he had a beard, just big sideburns. You know what it kind of looked like? Is if you ever see the remake of The Haunting, that painting of Hugh Crane that they paint a Welcome Home Now. Yeah, okay, that whole thing. It kind of looks like that, but like a bluish gray, and he doesn't look real happy. Sort of like a face like Vigo the Carpathian
Gotcha.
on it. And I'm just kind of like looking at this, and I'm awake and I'm seeing this, and this thing's kind of like going, like looking down at me now, like this, and I'm like, and I'm feeling around on the steam trunk that I use as a coffee table next to the couch. There's the remote. Turn on the TV. Turn up the volume, because if it's going to tell me something, I don't want to hear it.
Like,
and I roll over and I'm like, nope, F
What?
this. And I roll over and I'm like, yeah, out of sight, out of mind. I'm like, and I'm not going to go into my bedroom because there's nothing in there at all. And I'm like, I go in that room, which happens to be the room that Louise Tiedemann passed away. And I'm like, no, because there is no TV to distract me in that room. I'm not going into that room. That room is supposedly the most haunted room in the castle. And it's my bedroom. And I'm like, this is one of the reasons I don't sleep in it that often. things do happen in there as well. And I'm like, no, I'm just going to stay on the couch, just turn up the volume on the TV, keep the TV on. And I'm like, okay, that's good. All right, that's nice. So for the next number of nights, I kept trying to see if that would appear again, and it hasn't. But the following weekend, that Saturday, I had a friend came over, Sonny, she came over, we hung out for a little bit, and I was telling her about what had happened on the clock. Now, the clock hadn't chimed since about March or end of March, early April, doing the Westminster chime. After she left, it started chiming again. Ooh, this is cool. So it's going through that ding, 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 ding. So it does the whole Westminster chime. This is great. It's working again. Sweet, nice. It works. Couple nights later, 3 nights later, on Tuesday, I had a few friends come over. We were talking again about it. And after they left, I told them about what I had seen and how the clock started chiming again. And then it started, I swear to God, this clock is schizophrenic or something. It does the whole Westminster chime, the whole ding, 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 ding. Ding, 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 ding. And then when it starts chiming and doing the hours, it goes ding, 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 ding. It does it again. It does it like 3 or 4 times in a row. I'm like, oh my God, it's the middle of the night. And I'm like, shut up. And it stops.
Oh.
And 15 minutes later, it goes, boom. I'm like,
I was like waiting for you to
piece
get on
of
your
crap.
phone,
So-
like you're calling your mom.
So a couple friends came over last night and we're hanging out for a little bit, and I told them about this, and I'm like, yeah, I think my clock has like some sort of psychological disorder or something. It has something going on with. They're like, oh yeah, and I'm like, oh yeah, here comes the top of the hour. We're saying it stopped chiming. It didn't chime at all. I'm like, you mother, like the
Yeah.
clock. And so now, so on the plus side, I can actually sleep an entire night without this thing going off every 15 minutes. So hopefully it'll shut up for a little while. Yeah, it's nice to hear it again because it reminds me of Grandma and Grandpa's house over on 41st in Newark. On the con side, is that it? Yeah, it goes off and does his weird schizophrenic things in the middle of the night. So now it's between me and the
You
clock.
seem so resolved to just accept that spiritual activity is happening there.
Yeah. What else can I do? Well, it's like I moved into it. Yeah. Okay.
But did you believe before you moved into it? Did
Well,
you believe-
I believe there was something beyond. I believe there was a possibility, something beyond. I had a few things happen to me when I was younger. One time over at Prospect Place in Trinway, I did have something happen to me down there. But as far as it
So you have
really
the gift
went,
of The Shining.
sure, I can shine. I got the shine. I've never. I don't have any gift whatsoever. I wanted to believe. I was like Fox Mulder. I want to believe. The truth is out there somewhere. So I moved into this as a skeptic, and since moving in, I feel my belief in something beyond this is a little bit more reaffirmed at this point. Again, though, even me telling you this is not proof, and even me witnessing it, not proof. I can no more prove a haunting any more than I can debunk a haunting. I can look into the history of a place and prove or debunk that, but since we don't even know really what a haunting is entirely in its truest definition, I can't prove or deny its existence. But I moved into it knowing that it had the history behind it, and this is part of the legend of it. And it would be cool if things happened, and a number of things did. But if it was anything bad, I wouldn't be there. Despite what Zach Baggins tries to insinuate and says that I'm under the influence of something dark in the house. Zach Baggins, you can kiss my both my nuts. Sorry, call him out on that. He's kind of a prick.
We've said worse.
Did you ever have like a talk with your dad, a follow-up talk, like, "Hey, Dad, you know what you said a long time ago?"
Yeah. Oh yeah. We've talked about this. About like he's like, well, I just find it funny that you ended up there more than anything else. He's like, I thought. He's like, it's just we both agree. It's just weird how things just sometimes work out. Something that back when the Romano family bought the house in the late 1960s, and they were the first private family to own the house in more than 50 years, or almost 50 years at that point. Mrs. Romano, Dolores Romano, she said, you buy the house, you get the ghosts. And she was very acceptant of what was going on. And they were the first ones to publicly report on the haunting of the Franklin Castle. Now, the haunting we now know did extend to about 50 years earlier, at least, when the Shirky family owned the house between 1915 and 1921. Dr. Shirky and his wife, their son, Leroy, his wife lived well into her 90s, and she told her great-granddaughters, oh, yeah, when we lived there, yeah, the house was haunted. Our blankets used to get pulled off us in the middle of the night, and things would get moved around on their own quite frequently. She told that to her great-granddaughters in the early 1990s, and I happen to be friends with one of her great-granddaughters. I went to school with her. But so apparently the haunting had been going on for 50 years earlier than the Romanos. But back then, you really didn't want to tell your neighbors because it'll get into the word of the Cleveland Press or the Cleveland Plain Dealer. And the next thing you know, you've got a week and a half, 2 weeks of articles about the haunted house on Franklin. And then nobody's going to leave you alone. I found numerous articles in the Cleveland papers where it's this haunted house and that haunted house, and it was some really, and they would never give these people a moment's peace. So you didn't want to go about reporting on something like that to your neighbors.
This fascinates me. Absolutely fascinates me. So, I think I told you. No, maybe I didn't tell you. The first house I owned actually is around the corner from the Franklin Castle. It's on West 47th. That house is haunted. And I never experienced anything in the house. And the weird thing is, I think I eat too much garlic. Probably they don't. They don't like me around.
Something about bulb vegetable, bulb food. Yeah,
Exactly.
they don't
Water.
like it.
Yeah, 'cause I do. I eat a lot of garlic and stuff like that. But
Chives, they don't like chives
But
either.
you say the house is haunted, though.
yeah, so
was haunted.
whenever I wasn't home, because even after my ex and I broke up, she lived downstairs and I would live upstairs, and her uncle lived with me as well, and my sister lived there, and so there's 4 of us, right? If I was not there, nothing would ever happen. But as soon as I left, as soon as I would leave the house, stuff would start happening. They would go downstairs and they would hear doors opening, closing, and slamming, and somebody walking around, and they walk upstairs and there's nothing at all. And then this would go on and on and on. As soon as I would get home, it would stop. And so it's really weird that would happen. But this went on for the whole time I lived there, a couple of years. And eventually, I moved on. I sold the house eventually.
Yeah.
But which I kicked myself for because it's a duplex in Ohio City. So I made a fortune on it.
You'd be making $2,400 a month just
Right,
sitting there.
right.
Yeah, some hipster kids that live there.
I kicked myself for that. But yeah, like the whole time that I lived there, they would report these things. Even my own sister would say, "Oh yeah, there's things that happen there," and but whenever I was there, nothing. Same thing when I was younger. When I was a kid, lived way out in the country. Next door, which I say next door, every household, in the country is like 5 acres, right? So next door, the house highly haunted. Same thing. They would report, and even people who went there would report, pots and pans flying across the room. And she was my sister's friend, so we'd go there, and whenever I was there, nothing. So I have the other version of your story where nothing ever happens around me.
Yeah, I can relate.
But it happens with the people that I know, which is really weird. So it's
Sometimes you're lucky that you're not seeing these things happen because sometimes it'll really mess with you if you do. But also, something that was once told to me was maybe the people and being devout Christian also, is that certain things are being revealed to us because we need to see these things. These things need to happen in our lives at a certain point. Maybe not just for our own personal benefit, for maybe the way that we have to incorporate ourselves into society or the way we need to move forward, perhaps. But I think that maybe these things might just be happening just because we need to see them at that time. That's no excuse for it. Maybe it's just like, sorry you didn't see it, but it's...
I'm definitely interested in hearing what my other spiritual friends. I mean, what's your guys' take on ghosts and hauntings and stuff? I mean, is that a thing, or no? Is it not a thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, biblically, there's accounts, and Jesus never admonished anybody who witnessed spiritual, ghosts when they thought Jesus was a ghost walking through the water.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't like, no, there's no such thing as ghosts. He was just like, no, it was me. And then in my personal life, I've experienced a few things, you know, that you can't.
Well, you're not
prove
going
or
to stop there,
disprove.
Mike. I mean,
Well, the one that struck me that you were talking about is after my mother-in-law passed away, I had 2 right back-to-back experiences. And my ex-wife also had some experiences as well.
I think you shared this. Yeah, keep going. I want to hear it again.
And so one time, the first one, I was in a shower. You know, I don't think there's too much TMI here, but I had put shampoo in my hair.
That's like my biggest fear if I was to stay at the Franklin Castle.
Right.
I would never want to go to the bathroom ever. Like, no. Not
Oh, it's
happening.
very relieving. It's a wonderful experience.
Is it?
It's fantastic. I have to do it 3 times a day. It's fantastic. It's a good cycle.
So I had just put shampoo in my hair, and you know how the suds start getting in your eyes and all this kind of stuff. But I felt an energy, and I'm like, oh man, what's going on? You know, I just kind of felt a presence, and as I was like feeling this, it amped up so heavy that I flinched out of the way. I moved 3 feet out of the way. You know, kind of just like something happened, and the whole shower caddy thing fell down, hit the ground, like at the same exact moment. And coincidence? Maybe. Like within a week, my sister-in-law was over, and my ex-wife and I were all in the living room talking, and we had just poured some drinks, but there was a drink left on the stove, and all of a sudden we're mid-conversation, and the glass just shattered in midair.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
I see.
So it's just a weird coincidence. I know it wasn't like a glass top stove that, you know, the heat could have been on.
Just
It
don't
was-
just shatter on their own. The
Right.
bottoms of glasses
So-
don't
It's
just
an
break
old
on their
glass.
own.
Right.
Glass is just
It's
break.
an old shot glass. It just shattered on its own because it was
Right.
old.
into a gazillion pieces. I mean, just disintegrated.
So what I get from this is that ghosts don't like drinks.
They don't like drinks. Apparently, they don't.
Yeah, that's it.
They don't want to compete with the spirits in our glass.
I think it was related
That's
to what you
their
were
loss.
talking about, or something like. Were you guys talking about something heavy, or
Yeah.
I-
like the Ghostbusters reference, you
If-
know, where they're getting angry.
When you know, it actually reminded me of the movie Ghost a lot, where they're frustrated they can't communicate with the people around, and that was the energy or the vibe that I would
It's
feel.
a good flick. I haven't seen that one in a while.
It was a good flick. But you know how when a parent dies, you talk about them a lot during the next several weeks, and so I'm sure the conversation had mentioned her, and I do think that was just her trying to wanting to communicate. Not that it was an evil thing, but it was definitely a scary thing. We were all got
Right.
goosebumps.
So I'm fascinated by the idea that they can linger and exist between the physical and their whatever their realm is. Okay. I've had an indirect experience. So we used to live in Lakewood in this huge Victorian right on Detroit and pretty much West 17th. It was Ridgewood and Detroit. They put new condos up next to this house now.
I don't know the neighborhood yet. It's a nice neighborhood.
And it used to be just one home, and we rented out the newly renovated parts that used to be the servant quarters. Well, it was just me, Jen, at the time when we first moved in. We loved it, but we lived in the servants part of the old house. We had 1 or 2 kids at the time. I don't remember for sure, but anyways, nothing ever happened weird when we were there. But one time we had left, we'd gone out, and we came back. We're going through our messages, and our landlord's her kitchen, where they sat and they ate, it was right next to our kitchen where we came in, and they were sitting there at the time when we were gone, and they knew that we had left, and they're sitting there at their table, and she said that they freaked out because they're all sitting at their table, and it sounded like a truck was coming through their kitchen wall, as they were all experiencing dinner there together. And so she called immediately, thinking
All the kids, they all heard it.
everyone heard it. Her husband, their kids, they all experienced it. It's like, boom. It was just like, and they heard stuff fall between the walls, maybe rubble. It was an old building. It was just like a loud noise. She immediately picked up the phone and called us, thinking we were there. Left a message for us like, hey, I'm not sure if anyone's there right now, but it sounded like a truck or something. Those are her exact words. Was coming through our kitchen wall. Just want to make sure everything is okay, that kind of thing. And, you know, I mean, it was just a very weird experience. When we got home, nothing was out of place. Nothing was weird.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah,
What was
so-
it though, huh?
But I can relate to Aaron's experience that I have so many family experiences that have dealt with the supernatural, but I've never personally felt it or experienced. It's always been indirect.
I wish.
Again, I blame the garlic.
So I don't know what it is. I feel like some people, like maybe like you were saying, Bill, like some people need to see certain things at a certain point in their lives. Sometimes I feel like those people are more privileged in the sense because, growing up in a religious household, I've heard a lot of stories and you want to experience some of those things to confirm everything you were taught.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can never get that.
I wonder about that sometimes too, though, because Saint Padre Pio,
Oh, yes.
modern saint, a great saint, died, within the last 100 years. Great saint of the Catholic Church. Real quick, before we move on to this next part of this story, here's a word from our sponsors.
Hey, it's Gumby here from Bible Over Brews. Are you looking to get some editing done in your podcast? Maybe you don't have the hours or time it takes to edit your content, but you still need to get it done. Maybe you need a customized track or a song for your podcast or your next project without having to worry about copyright issues. Well, look no further than soulworkmusic.com, where this footwork is done for you. I'll get that editing, post-production work done right for you, or create you that customized song that fits your project or podcast to help support your life's work. If this sounds like what you need, reach out to me at soulworkmusic.com. Again, that's soulworkmusic.com. And remember, there's nothing taboo over brew.
Yeah, I was going to say, he could see the spirit realm. And when he was younger, he didn't know that others didn't. Like, people came up where they would walk up to him and say, "Who are you talking to?" He's like, "Well, I'm talking to my guardian angel," right? And then he was actually caught talking to other people's guardian angels. And then that's when it dawned on him when they asked him, "Who are you looking at?" That's when it dawned on him, well, they can't see them. And they asked him one time, they said, "If you could do this over again, would you want to see these things?" And he said, "No." He said, once you see them, they're always present. And he said, the demons are so prevalent across the world that if you could see them, they blot out the sun. He's like, they're everywhere. So it's,
Wow.
yeah.
It's deep.
That's upsetting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think of the, Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis,
Yeah.
that they had some unfinished business, and to the willing and available person, their spirit or their mind that were open, that person could help, help them do whatever it is that they need to do. That's the only rationale I could come up with, like, as why certain people can, but I may go in Franklin's castle and never experience anything.
A lot of people don't. And that's something that really gets me.
Right.
I had a simple laugh on that one because a lot of people will come over expecting something to happen, and honestly, as Franklin Castle is my best. That's my best litmus test right there. Is the castle is like, this is what I base most everything on. I mean, I've been other places, Prospect Place. I think Mansfield Reformatory. I don't know how many places you guys would have been to.
Agora.
Yeah,
I heard
okay.
Agora Theater is haunted.
The Agora, I heard that too. I went to the Agora once to see Typo Negative a long time ago. It was a great concert.
But it was.
Didn't happen anything. And it was in the middle of a snowstorm in the early 90s. So there were maybe about 75 people there. So you get to see Typo Negative with
that's
only
right.
about 75 to 100 people.
Like 10
They
feet away from
sold-
Steel, right?
Yeah, they sold hundreds upon hundreds of tickets and nobody showed up because it was the middle of a blizzard. So great place. So that was at least a great experience. But I use the castle as my litmus test. Sorry, that's the word I'm looking for. And I've had experiences in numerous places, but things as far as the castle goes, I told people we have things that happen here as frequently as every 5 minutes and as infrequently as every 5 weeks. And I'm sure that's probably true across the board. They like to call the Franklin Castle the most haunted house in Cleveland. You guys can't see me at home. Okay, I'm using finger quotes. Okay, when I said that. What makes it the most haunted house in Ohio? if you've ever seen a Dead Poet Society, what makes a poem a good poem? Does it have good meter? Does it have good rhyme? If it's high on the meter and low on the rhyme, it's down here. If it's high on the meter and high on the rhyme, it's a superior poem and it's up here. So what is it? Is it the intensity of the paranormal event versus the frequency of the event? If it happens every 10 minutes and it's scary as all hell, it's up here. If it happens every 2 weeks and not that scary, it's down here. I'm like, what is there a scale of this? Is this how they judge the most haunted?
Now there is.
No, I think it's the most. Yeah, maybe there is. Yeah, maybe I just invented it right now. So okay, so maybe it's the most notoriously known haunted house in Ohio, or the most well-known haunted house in Ohio. Might be a better way to say it. A group of kids from somewhere south of here. Well, I think everywhere is south of here. Right. We're northern Ohio. Is Mudville Mansion. They're like, oh, it's the most haunted house in Ohio. They invented that story a year before they knocked the house down. It never was known as.
Shut up.
Yeah, I know. I heard about that. They're like, oh, Mudville Mansion. It's an abandoned house in central Ohio. That's great. And they're knocking it down right now. It's the most haunted house in Ohio. Yeah,
because keep that up.
Because you said it
and you live there.
Right.
The house had been derelict for years, and they just suddenly, a year before they knock it down, it's the most haunted house in Ohio. And I'm like, sure it is. Yeah, okay. Okay, says who? Says you. Well, okay, well, this place has been haunted since 19 teens, so over 100 years, but notably known since the 1960s. So there is no scale though out there to make what's the most haunted, this or that. So, but what really grinds my gears, I said it there. God, I've been using that term all week. So it's my brother and his fiance Emma. Is when one of these teams comes, this shows is professional ghost show, professional. Again, I did air quotes again, folks. Come in and say they make it look like they're there for one night. If you've ever been at a filming of one of these shows, I won't single out. I've been to a few of them, and I've been on a few. They mostly make it look like they're there for one night. They're really there for about 4 or 5. Between 3 and 5 is what they're normally there for. And they got about a week's worth of filming for B-roll, pickup, interviews, and then the actual investigation goes on for about 3 nights or so, but not the entire night. They're not there till dawn. Most teams are not. Some are really there like for a whole 48, 72 hour period. That's one team that does that. And what really pisses me off though is after their time, well, we were here and, nothing, and they make it look like they were only there for a few hours. But we didn't have anything happen to us, so we don't think your house is haunted. Piss off, okay? That's all I can say is piss off. I'm sorry. It's like if you walk into a place and you expect something to happen and nothing happens, and you're going to be leaving, and nothing happened to you, and you're like, oh well, we don't think your place is haunted because nothing happened to us. You're gonna piss up a rope, okay? Yeah. Because you know what that tells me? It just simply means nothing happened while you were here. It's like, are you this isn't
I doubt ghosts are excited to come and talk to TV producers.
Yeah. Can you please tell us your name? Can you give us a knock if you're here?
Dan Rather's here?
What's your? Give us a knock twice if you're here. Knock 3 times if you're here. Yeah, that's great. Okay, yeah, they're not going to do that. It's not Beetlejuice. They're not doing parlor tricks for Jeffrey Jones and yeah. Okay, all right. So my point being is that they don't perform on command when you call. Now I did have one night where we did have a group that did come in and do a paranormal investigation, a ghost hunt of the Franklin Castle, and after they left, I had the worst time trying to get to sleep. Because I kept hearing. Constant.
They were pissed.
And I'm like, what the hell is going on? It's knocking. And I'm like, okay, shut up. And I'm like, and I'm hearing this knocking. So, okay, I was email correspondence on Monday morning. That was on a Saturday night.
What if it was Morse code?
And, oh, God, I should have jotted down. Damn it. But it was so far between. It's like maybe it was very slow Morse code. It's like over the half an hour, I got A, B, 229 or what? I don't even know. Are there numbers in Morse code? Probably not. I don't know. So I'm like, oh yeah, oh, and they're like, oh yeah, we had a great time. Thanks for that was great being over there. It was wonderful. And they're like, and then I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, yeah, after you left, I don't know if you got anything while you're here, but I had a lot of knocking noises right after you left, like within 15 minutes of you leaving. And they're like, okay, they're like, that's funny because we kept saying, if there's anybody here, can you please make a knocking sound? And nothing would happen. We did this for the next 2 hours. I'm like, oh yeah, they just waited till you left, and that was kind of a cue, like if it is a conscious haunting, like don't do that again.
Just to spite them, they were like, they wait till they left, and they're like,
it was more to it was more to piss me off and say, don't do that. That's don't.
Have you
don't
tried a
do
Ouija
that.
board?
No, that's
Is that too deep? Is that
yeah,
too...
we don't. Yeah, we there's
don't do that.
the Franklin Castle
now
is
I'm really
okay.
scared.
Okay, so I'll say this. Okay, officially, the Franklin Castle it is a private residence. There are tenants. I'm one of them. It is a private residence right now. It's not open to the public for public tours or for public ghost hunts. It's not a tourist attraction with like a regular set of hours of operation. So any of you guys listening at home, don't email us and say, hey, when can I take a tour? Hey, are you open tomorrow from 8 to 10? I want to come over and see that. No, don't do that. Okay. We do occasionally do, like, we will permit a private viewing, or a group wants to come and do a private paranormal investigation. That's all right. We'll take it. The owners will take it under consideration. Okay. Things like that. And so but there is a list of things that they ask that you don't do, and one of them is rituals. No table tipping. No spiritual cleansings. No Ouija boards. We have to live in this house. We don't want you bringing no mirroring or rituals like that.
I've never heard of table tipping.
Table tipping. This was a hoax thing
that
that I
cows?
saw, where you move a table back and forth, and you can conjure spirits, and they can move the
So it's
table
like cow
around, and it's like cow tipping only with a table.
All right.
And you can, if you look really close, you can see the guy moving his foot underneath the table like
right.
this,
Okay.
and
Okay.
making it move. I saw
makes more
that with
sense
with a UV or an infrared camera at Prospect Place. I caught somebody doing that, and I'm like,
that's super
your
scary,
foot's
though.
moving the
Why
table.
did they make that a rule that you can't use a Ouija board?
No,
there?
we asked because we live in the house, so we don't.
But you can.
No, I don't use a Ouija board. We don't do things like that there.
You actually will piss them off.
I don't
want
want
That's scary.
Because as of
I
to this
don't-
point,
I don't
it hasn't
want-
been violent.
Okay, do you want to bring a Ouija board into your house or your kid's
Nope.
room and
Nope.
do
Nope.
stuff like that? That's not. No, we don't want to
Scary.
dabble in that sort of
do
thing.
it, you know, like
We you know what blew my mind though? We did have one guy one time, and he was like, we do have this rules and regulations form that we will sit, because if you're going to come over and be a visitor to our house, we ask this. It's things like don't post pictures online. You know, it's because we have people living there, and that's an invasion of privacy. Right, you know, right. But this one guy after I sent him this. Emailed him our rules and he's like, well, I'll have to respectfully decline. And I thought it was because he was one of these people that wants to post all over Facebook, I'm going to go to the Franklin Castle and you're not. We get a lot of those people too. I'm like, yeah, okay, you're not, because we asked that you don't, broadcast that you're, because it's a private visit. You're being welcomed into our home as a private guest. Yeah. And a lot of people, oh, well, I don't want to, they just want to brag to their friends that they're there and post pictures online. Yeah. This one guy, he's like, well, I have to respectfully decline. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm sorry to hear that. Is there, which rule is that? Oh, it said after reading your rules, I have to respectfully decline. So I'm like, oh, okay. Sorry to hear that. Well, out of curiosity, which rule was it? It was the no smudging of sage in the house.
You're not allowed to do that? I thought that was a good thing, though.
Yeah, well, no, that drives away spirits or something, or
Be
it
gone,
wards
demons, be
it
gone.
wards off
Be
spirits.
smudge at my house.
And I'm like, well, no, we can't. We don't allow that for a very good reason. He's like, well, F your reasons. I'm under constant attack from demonic forces, and I have to do this everywhere I go, or else I will be possessed by the most darkest of forces. And I'm like, okay, I don't want this guy coming in our house.
Why would you want to come to begin with?
The reason that we don't allow smudging in the house is simple. We have smoke detectors that are very sensitive, and they will go off and summon the Cleveland Fire Department, and we can't have you burning incense under a smoke detector up here, because we don't want the fire department showing up at the castle and saying, "No, it's just some lunatic burning sage."
Well, we got to check anyway. I'm going to come through the ceiling.
Yeah, it's very like you're saying, it is a private residence.
It is, yeah. There are people that live in the house.
I don't believe I have ever talked about this until I brought you on the show now about how we were on site and talking and stuff. I kind of held off publicly ever talking about it until you're here with me. So yeah.
You did come on, and thank you for holding off until now. That's really appreciate it. But it is a private residence. We do have people that live there. One of our other residents is Zach Webb. He's a local artist up in Cleveland. He's a great artist. He's a wonderful fella. So he's also there. So and then the owners are there time to time. So. But the smudging of sage, we ask that you don't do that because we don't want the fire department to show up. And there are some things that people get a little freaky about, and they're like, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, that's
Are blood orgies allowed?
kind of blood orgies. Blood oranges are allowed. I will allow blood oranges.
Okay.
Blood orgies. I don't know. Believe it or not, we do have a rule: no sex in the castle. That's if you're conducting a paranormal investigation or some sort of ghost hunt. You're not allowed to fornicate in the castle. Believe it or not, that rule actually applies to me, not by choice. It's just my lot in life, I think, because I'm single, and that just
And if not, the ghost will dissuade you not to, right?
Sure, yeah. They'll anyone that comes over will be like, no, go away. And then I actually did have my brother's like, dude, you should tell every single girl out there that you live in the Franklin Castle. You'll be getting trimmed left and right. And I'm like, I'm not gonna do that, man. That's fucking terrible. I'm like, that's horrible.
It's an interesting angle, but
I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. No, I'm like, no, I don't want to get laid because of the house I live in. Like, it'd be great to just get laid because of the charming person that I am, or I'm a nice guy, or hey, he's cute. Not because of hey, baby, I live in the Franklin. No, I'm not gonna do that. He's like, you should totally do that. He's like, I'd be doing that nonstop.
Yeah, you'd be like Sam and Dean, man.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I can't. I'm like, I can't do that. That's terrible. I'm like, the hell with anybody that does. And I'm like, no, I did have a tell a girl that I was dating that I did live there, and she came over, took one look around, said, absolutely not. We're done. I am not going. And I'm like, what? She's like, I cannot.
Of what this
she's
guy
like,
said.
yeah. She's like, I cannot be here. I cannot be in this house. It's too freaky. I can't
Really?
be. So I'm like, okay. So I do have to. So I found out the hard way. Now I do have to let somebody that I'm seeing or interested in seeing know where I do live, because I don't want that 2 weeks into the relationship them finding out
Things
that
are
I
going
live there
well.
and being like, no F this. I'm not. I can't even spend a night here.
Yeah,
no way in hell. How the hell can you even live in this place?
Well, not to mention, what if you show up with the girl and you're passionately kissing, all of a sudden there's
Yeah, that's the real gooch. Or it's like, what the hell is your housemate home? No, it's just the ghosts up in the attic.
Right.
Well, yeah.
The ballroom spirits.
So is there a long-term, are you allowed to share? Is there a long-term plan for this house?
Currently, right now, it's simply a private residence. Right now is the term. The owners have thrown out a few ideas. I'm not allowed to say any of those
How
yet.
many apartments are there? How many-
Well, it's still just one house right now with a couple of, and that's the beauty of it. It's very compartmentalized. That while it is one house, we can simply, by closing a door, it can be its own space.
Nice.
That's the wonderful thing about it. Like my where I'm staying, like my part of the house has a door that opens from the kitchen into the front part of the rest of that floor, and then I open the other door and it goes right out into the main hall with the staircases. Where Zach lives downstairs, it's a room that goes out into the main part of the house. So it's very compartmentalized right now. That it is one house, and we're all one part of one household. That it's not like apartments like that.
Gotcha.
But it's just so well. It's just the way the house is built. I mean, that it could be so easily utilized into that. But right now, the current plan is just right now private residence. There are a few ideas out there, and we'll all know them
We'll
as
see,
soon
yeah.
as they're made known. I really don't know 100% of what they're planning yet either. So it's just
Before we wrap up, there's a rumor. There's a rumor that there was, because this is Bible over Brews.
Yeah.
There's a rumor that there was a prohibition bar downstairs.
yeah, there
that
was.
true?
Yeah, kind of. Yes, there was. Not downstairs. Something was found downstairs, but there was, as I understand it, a bar. Okay, so during the Prohibition era, throughout the 20s and into the early 1930s, the house was owned this time by Bildungsverein Eintracht, which was a German singing society that had politically socialist leans. Now, socialist then means different than what it means now, okay? So, just simply, all politics aside, it was a private club during the Prohibition era. Now, from what was, okay, historically, it was a first floor, second floor, third floor, and then a fourth floor.
Okay.
Today, they regard it as basement, first floor, second floor, attic. For historic purposes, we'll use first, second, third, and fourth floor, okay? The first floor and the second floor, the first floor is primarily where the caretakers lived during this era. Big kitchen down there, big sitting room, a bedroom, and the kitchen, and then like a washroom utility room sort of thing. So it's pretty much everything they needed. On the second floor was the great hall, or the great room, which is still that big, very large room that has the two fantastic fireplaces in it, and two bedrooms in the back that were, as I understand it, used for offices, and plus the actual glassed-in office. Above that, the third and the fourth floor, you had to get buzzed in. There was a cage door going up the stairs, and you can see where the screws used to be to hold the cage door in place. You had to get buzzed in. You had to go up and hit a thing, and they would unlock the thing, or somebody would unlock it, and they would let you in. Third and fourth floor were restricted. So performances were given in the second floor in that great room. They knocked out the walls intentionally to make it into one big performance space. The group would sing up on the fourth floor. That was their practice space in the old ballroom upstairs. But the third floor, the back rooms, which are now currently my bedroom and my living room, they had card tables in there. The front rooms, though, which are now my kitchen / Mr. Tiedemann's old original bedroom and the front sitting room, there used to be a bar up there and two pool tables. And there used to be fireplaces in those as well, marble fireplaces. There were two. They're down to one. We don't know what happened to one of them. It went missing sometime in the 1980s. But there was a bar up there. It was a very large bar. It was not original to the house, but was a bar. It's removed by the Romano family some years later. There was some buckshot in the bar, and Mr. Romano was reported in a newspaper article in the 1960s as having dug a bunch of buckshot out of this bar. And he says, they must have had some wild parties up here. This is what lent stories to a mass execution in a hidden room on the third floor of Nazis being gunned down in an execution.
Yeah.
Buckshot in a bar. Now, also around the same time in the 1960s, the original wooden floor down on the first floor was rotted out. It had rotted over the last 80 years or so. So Mrs. Romano, she had been previously married, and two of her sons from her first marriage, Ken and Bill Ochiltree, they were down there and they were pulling floorboards and removing the original floor and putting a new floor in. And while they were replacing it, there used to be this wainscot paneling that went around the perimeter of that first floor, the main room. And while one of the Ochiltree boys was pulling a board, one of the panels and just came down and bashed him on the head and threw him to the floor. And his brother runs over. Holy crap! He runs over, picks up the board, throws it out of the way. Are you all right? And he's got a big old goose egg on his head, and he's okay. He's a little boofed up, but look inside, and on the other side of that panel, there's a hidden room. And what do they find in that room? A giant poster of Karl Marx.
Oh, wow.
Rolled up. Giant poster of Lenin, from what I was told. Now, I've only seen the poster of Marx. I've never seen the Lenin one. A giant collection of German socialist literature copies of Solidaridad. And by the way, that happens to be the largest collection of German socialist literature in the United States they discovered that day.
Wow.
And what's sitting there in the middle of it, under a tarp? A whiskey still. An illegal whiskey still. Yes, they were, in fact, making their own alcohol during the Prohibition era. Now, when I interviewed a number of people while John and I were writing the book, I did cold call a number of people who were descendants of, I tracked down descendants of the people that did run the Eintracht Club. And it's a wonderful thing about being a genealogist is you can do reverse genealogy and go down and track someone down, and God willing, that's the number, and hopefully it works. Oh, hey, good. And they're like, and you share this with them, and they're like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, illegal liquor, yeah. And they laugh about it, and they're like, I wouldn't doubt it one bit. And they're like, yep, those guys up on there, I remember having to get buzzed up there, and yeah, we're like, nope, keep moving. You're not allowed to stop at this floor. Keep going up to the top floor. And it was some funny stuff. But yes, there was some illegal liquor production. We do have a funnel that was, as I understand it, was left over from that still set for bottling. So, and the owners, it was given to me by a past owner. It was in a bag with some stuff, parts also of the still, and I gave it to the current owners. So they have it now. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Bill, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much for coming over
Thanks
here.
for having me on.
I'm hoping we can reserve you in the future for more stories.
Absolutely, yes.
Awesome.
Yes, I got a million more.
Maybe some fun trips if we're going to meet you up on the island or something.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
Yeah, right?
let's do a broadcast from the beach or
That'd
the
be
Lanai
fantastic.
or something like that. Yeah, do my
Awesome.
ghost walk up there. You guys are welcome to join me, of course, for that too.
I
So.
think that would be integral to a trip up there.
Absolutely.
Gumby, any thoughts?
There's nothing taboo over Brews. I appreciated everything tonight. It's a lot of fun. We could probably keep asking questions the whole night.
My closing statement. This is a little bit morbid, but I'm setting it up now. If you happen to pass before me, all right, I'm driving past the Franklin Castle. I'm gonna scream your name. Just like flick a light on for me.
I'll do better than that. I'll flip the shutters up and down, up and down. I love messing with people who come over and take pictures of the house. I'll do that with the shutters.
In
it's
Morse
great.
code, it's going to be George.
There we go.
Mike?
Oh, this has been great. I like your license plate, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. I guess there's someone that does a whole Instagram of funny personalized license plates for the state of Ohio. Mine got featured in October.
Nice.
So my license plate says HAUNTD, and then below it says Put in Bay. Because it's a Put in Bay license plate. It's got the Perry's Monument on it. It's supposed to say Haunted Put in Bay, which is the name of a book and the ghost walk that I host.
Nice.
If the car were black, I would do a Haunted Put in Bay ghost walk wrap on the hood. And but it's red.
And then close us down. And if you have anything you want to plug or let everyone know.
What? How can people get a hold of you? See your books?
Yeah, let's see. Don't call me, please. I got enough of that after Ghost Adventures was on. Here's a great one. I don't know if you guys are aware. There's a show called The Holzer Files. Have you guys familiar with this
I
one?
have not watched yet.
Okay, well, this is okay. Dr. Hans Holzer was one of the forerunning paranormal investigators of the 20th century. He's the guy that really started the whole movement. He wrote a number of books, did radio appearances, TV appearances. He was the guy who started the paranormal investigative field. So his daughter and a number of people associated with him have picked up his files and have been reinvestigating a number of places that he investigated. And they have a TV show. I believe it's in its second or third season now. It's called Holzer Files. And I think it's in a week or two, the episode on the Franklin Castle airs.
Yes.
One of the producers, he says, we're calling this Bill Krejci's Revenge because of the way, and it was a joke. I had talked to him numerous times before. And they recently did another episode here in Cleveland on Mason Court of a phantom hand that was reaching out of a cellar. And I helped them out a little bit with that. Unfortunately, I missed the episode. I didn't get to see it. So I do want to see that episode still, but I did help them with some of the research and tracking down who at the time, the son of the family, who at the time was 2 or 3 years old. So I really want to see that episode, but they did come over. They did do an episode on the Franklin Castle. And while Dr. Holzer never actually wrote about it, they said, we know why. And there's so supposedly something very big, some big secret that's supposed to be revealed, and I can't wait to see what it is. So I'm really excited. So this shows the Holzer Files. So we'll all get to see it, and hopefully they don't do what Zach Baggins insinuated, that I'm possessed by the house, and hopefully they don't take like answers. I said no to this question and take the part where I said yes to that and put it there. And I don't think they will. They seem decent enough. So I'm looking forward to that episode.
Plus, that episode that you were on is also available on YouTube as well. And I think it's also on Amazon, I think, right?
Yeah, the of Ghost Adventures.
Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately, it is. Yeah, I think you can all watch how I was completely misquoted and my answers were turned around.
TV.
You know what though? I was on Ghost Hunters more than 10 years ago, and all they did was simply just edit out 40 minutes of the conversation. That's fine. They didn't make my answers not what I said. They just simply edited out 40 minutes of it. That's okay. And, hey, I made the special features of Ghost Hunters too, so that was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
So, and if anything more comes along, I'm talking with. I mentioned Jim Willis earlier, not on the program, but someone you guys really need to talk to. Great guy. We're working on something. I'll tell you about after we get off the air.
All right.
So
Sounds
it's something
good.
else we could talk about later. All right. Well, thanks again
All
for having
right.
me on.
Oh, thank you for coming on.
My
And
pleasure.
make sure you check out Bible Over Brews at Patreon and every social network, including Facebook and Twitter. In fact, you can support us right at anchor.fm/Bible Over Brews. Have a great night. Godspeed.
Adios.
See ya.